Good morning, everybody. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and today I've got a big announcement that I'm super excited about. And as most of you know who follow this show, we are an entrepreneur show, a real estate show, and kind of just a winning mindset show. We have professional athletes from the NFL, NHL, MLS, to Olympians, to successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of real estate investors, as we've already discussed. And I have been in the works of putting together a real estate investing course. And that's what I'm super excited about, because it's literally a course that I've probably been putting together on and off for multiple years now. I don't even know when I started, but I started accumulating content for the course, curriculum for the course several years ago, because I want to make sure that it is the best real estate course that you can get out there. Now, I've, of course, not seen every single real estate course that there is out on the market, but I've seen a lot. In being a consultant, a national speaker for some of the educators out there, the big national educators. I've seen what their curriculum looks like. I've seen, what their education entails, and some of it, like the good stuff, I've adopted, and because I feel it's valuable, and so, but some of it I feel like it's not as valuable, and so I'm kind of just honing and refining, and we're coming to the end of this course finally. Holy cow, it's been, like I said, multiple years of progress. Finally coming down to the end where I think it's a very realistic goal that we're going to be able to launch this real estate course by the end of this year. So in the next couple months, it should be officially ready to launch. And here's what's so cool about it. A lot of real estate courses out there are tailored to a specific niche. How to buy rental properties might be a course that you'll see out there, or how to fix and flip houses, or how to wholesale houses, or whatever, right? Multiple courses out there. And originally, that is kind of the direction I started, because that was kind of what you see a lot of. And I thought, you know what? The guys that are doing this for a business professionally, that are making real estate the income producing machine that they desired, those guys typically know how to do a lot of everything, right? They might have a special niche that they love the most. Like, for example, me, my favorite niche in real estate investing is fixing and flipping, because I think it's the most fun artistic project of all the real estate projects that you would do. You get to take this really ugly house and you get to renovate it, make it drop dead gorgeous, and then turn around and flip it for a nice big chunk. However, I do understand the value of also doing rentals, which is why I've purchased a rental portfolio as well, and I also have wholesaled properties, and I'm also a licensed real estate agent, and all of the above. Seller finance transactions, I've done seller finance transactions. And so by knowing all of these different tools, it gives you the ability to do more transactions, where if all I did was fix and flip, came across a deal that didn't work, I'd probably just thank the seller for letting them meet with me and head on home. But because I have the ability to understand seller financing, creative financing, structuring a deal uniquely, differently, creatively, I can make deals work in many cases just knowing the multiple ways to do deals than just the one niche. So where I'm going with that is, originally I was going to create a course that, was niche specific. But I thought, if I really want people to succeed, I started to think about, no, that's not the way you go about doing it. I started doing that because that's kind of what you see, is the niche specific. Like, hey, do you want to know how to fix and flip houses? Here's a course on how to do that. But I started to think, yeah, but there's so much opportunity to produce income through other streams of income in the real estate game that you really, it's the most advantageous to know them all. And so that's when I thought, you know what? I'm going to do 6 courses in one. So I was putting together 6 individual courses. And now what I've decided to do is just put them all together in one, which is super exciting because now you get the whole enchilada, right? And so you're gonna, one of the courses, let's see, fix and flip. Okay, you're gonna learn how to fix and flip houses. There's going to be a section on how to build up a rental portfolio, how to wholesale properties, a course on seller financing, just structuring deals creatively, uniquely, just ways that typically aren't done. How to invest virtually. What I mean by that is, so I was born and raised here in Salt Lake City, and then I moved to New York City where I lived for 18 years. Now, I started going to the real estate investing associations out in New York City. And because New York City is so expensive, all of these real estate investing associations out in New York City were teaching and educating their members how to invest virtually in a market that they did not live in. Because we all lived in New York City, and there was nobody that was investing in New York City proper just because of the high prices. But what we would do is we would invest in upstate New York, we would invest in Pennsylvania, we would invest in New Jersey, we'd invest in surrounding cities, states that were not too far for some of us. And for me, I did upstate New York, I did Kansas City, and I did Salt Lake City because I was born here. So I had a lot of knowledge of the Salt Lake area. Even though I lived in New York City for 18 years, I grew up in Salt Lake City, born and raised for 18 years. And so I invested virtually. The beginning of my real estate investing career was a virtual investing career. I learned first how to invest in a market I did not live in. You know, it's become very popular now, people in Salt Lake, because the prices in Salt Lake are getting expensive. I'm seeing more and more investors who have always invested here first. They started investing locally where they lived. Because the prices have gone up, they're now entertaining the places like Idaho and Oklahoma and all the different virtual cities that have become kind of a hot market to go and invest in. That's the way I started, ironically, because I had already lived in a city that was super expensive. So there's going to be a course on how to invest in real estate virtually. I think that's important because if you live in New York City, you live in San Francisco, you live in Los Angeles, then you live in a market that's probably very difficult as far as barrier of entry into your first transaction because of the prices being so high. So if you can understand and learn how to safely invest in a market where you don't live, then it allows certain people that would not normally be able to get into the game, it would allow them to get into the investing game, right? And that's what it's all about. I think if you just get started, then at some point you can grow what you've started. But if you don't start, it's hard to grow nothing, right? But if you have something and you hold it for a while or do what you need to do to force appreciate that asset, then you can turn and roll that asset up and buy something a little bit more expensive. We had a guest earlier this month, Tyler Tolbert, where he talked about his very first investment was an owner-occupied fourplex. Lived at home with his parents all up until this point, decided he wanted to buy his first investment, decided he wanted to buy a fourplex, super smart because he was going to owner-occupy it, live in one of the units, have the other 3 rent out. And the other 3 rents brought enough income that it paid his mortgage for him. So he lived almost hypothetically for free in that fourplex. And I say hypothetically because there's expenses, right? You got to mow the lawn if the roof leaks. I mean, that's not free. But as far as having his debt service, his mortgage payment paid off, that was free. Like the 3 units covered his mortgage payment. What we learned is that fourplex sat on an acre of land that he subdivided and sold the land. Took the money from the land and bought a 5-plex. Rolled that money up into a 5-plex in right by Liberty Park, which he then recently sold that 5-plex because the value had gone up so much and now is invested in a 21-unit apartment building all from a fourplex. And that's what it's about, just getting started. You know, it's not overnight. It was a lot. It was, you know, I think that whole process was just about a decade, if not over a decade. I mean, you know, 10 years, but I mean, hey, that's better than nothing. If you don't start in 10 years, you have nothing, right? But if you start, you know, and with real estate, so much of it is about timing, right? A lot of it's luck and a lot of it's timing. If you buy an asset at the bottom and over the next 10 years, values go up in that market like crazy, that's fantastic. I mean, a little bit of luck, a little bit of timing, but the fact of the matter is you got started, so you got to benefit from that luck and that timing. For those people that didn't invest at the bottom and getting started now, but have been thinking about it forever, then, you know, they missed out on the boat. Now, if you're just thinking about it now, you got to start somewhere, right? And so now's the best time to start. So we want to just get started, whether you live in a Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City. I wanted to create something that was going to allow people to invest in a market outside of the one you live in. So if you feel that, you know, here's the thing, Salt Lake is starting to become unaffordable, right? So I'm talking about San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York City, but you know, there's markets like Seattle that are extremely unaffordable, and I think Salt Lake City is right behind there. You know, it's not quite Seattle yet, but the prices are going up that my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old, by the time they're of age to buy a house, Salt Lake is going to be so unaffordable, they're probably going to have to rent in the beginning. You know, they say every market has a median age and where people start to officially buy their first home, right? And I'm not sure what the age groups are. I forgot what the article said. But for example, here in Salt Lake, you know, it used to be that you could pretty much buy a house based off of affordability in the Salt Lake area when you were in your mid-20s. Now prices are going up so quickly that it's probably late 20s, early 30s. And then you get a market like Los Angeles where the average buyer who's buying their first home, I think, is their mid-40s, right? And so you're renting all of those years before you finally have enough money saved up to buy a house. And where I'm going with that is Salt Lake City is, you know, going in that direction where I think that the younger generation is going to take longer to experience home ownership than, let's say, my generation did, because by the time the younger generation gets to an age to buy homes, like I said, they're just going to be unaffordable. So it might be valuable to learn how to virtual invest even if you live in Salt Lake, and it's kind of hard to even fathom that because Salt Lake's always been such an affordable place to live, but I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. And maybe we get a market correction and the market goes down, and great, that'd be amazing, and then affordability comes back. But in due time, it's just going to go right back up, and when it does, that's where I think Salt Lake is going to be really considered an unaffordable market. I've shared on this show before, in 2019, the National Association of Real Estate put out an article that, I think it was the National Association, I'm racking my brain right now if that was the source, but they put together the list of the top 25 most unaffordable markets in the nation. And for the first time in history, in 2019, Salt Lake City hit that list at number 25. We were in last place. Never in history have we ever been considered an unaffordable market in the United States of America until 2019. Our prices have gone up so dramatic over the last few years that in 2019 we hit the most unaffordable market list, top 25 in the nation. Now, the bad news is we are officially unaffordable according to this list. The good news is, of all the unaffordable markets, we're the most affordable at 25, right? And so, I mean, if you're not considering purchasing Salt Lake real estate, and it's something that you want to do, I mean, if you have no desire to purchase real estate, then, you know, don't purchase real estate. I have no desire to flip cars. I know a guy who fixes and flips cars. That's what he does for a living. He has a dealership, and they'll buy cars at auctions, turn around, fix and flip them. I have no desire to do that, so I'm in no hurry to go buy cars. It's just not what I do. But for those of you who have thought about buying real estate in the Salt Lake market, I think a wake-up call as far as this article is concerned, is you need to take action now. I think if you've procrastinated the idea of investing in real estate, you cannot procrastinate any longer, because I really feel like it's going to be a point where you're going to not, there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to afford purchasing real estate here in the Salt Lake area. And so at this particular point, once that comes, you're going to kick yourself that you didn't take advantage of buying Salt Lake real estate when it was the number 25 most inexpensive market in the nation, and it's now number 10 or whatever. It'll never be number 1, I don't think. New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles markets are always going to be more expensive. In my guess, as far as my guesstimation, they're typically going to always be more expensive than the Salt Lake market. But I see the Salt Lake market climbing that ladder, climbing that list. And when it does, it's going to be very difficult to start buying investment properties here in Salt Lake, especially investment properties that will cash flow, right? You're going to get a property that's going to produce income for you based off of rental income and your mortgage payment on cash flow when your mortgage payment is small. If you spend a lot of money buying an expensive property, your mortgage payment's high, usually the rental income does not supersede that mortgage payment, and you've got negative cash flow. So if you're going to purchase real estate at a point where you can get cash flow, really the time is now. Like I said, there's definitely talks of a market correction and real estate prices going down, but there's been talks about that for the last 3 years, and it hasn't. And I'm not saying it won't. I believe it will. When? I don't know. But when it does, that's, for sure, if you're procrastinating getting into the game, that's where I highly suggest you better not procrastinate any longer. You better get into the game for sure if we do see a market correction. But the way I like to invest is I don't like to assume there's a market correction coming, because nobody knows the future. I'm out there attacking, good assets right now, whether it's a correction or not. Always just hypothetically, I think it's a good idea to always be on the lookout. And if it does correct, then great. We do get, the opportunity of seeing better prices in the real estate market. So the other topic in the course, the 6-course all-in-one course that I'm creating, is how to hire virtual assistants. This is the 6th and final course that I think is very valuable if you're going to see any type of growth in your business, which is how to hire people, right? And over the last 10, 11 years, I have been working with virtual assistants, meaning I'm working with assistants that live in other parts of the world, right? And I typically tend to work with, most of the virtual assistants I've worked with over the last 10 years have been from the Philippines. So right now I've got an assistant in the Philippines as we speak, and she's part of my team, and she helps me with so much, just basically what an assistant would here, right? And here's what's crazy. Right now, because of the coronavirus, so many people are working from home, right? There was this mentality since the beginning of time for so many employers that in order to run a successful business, you had to have an office that everybody showed up to. And then the coronavirus made everybody have to stay home, and all of a sudden, all these massive corporations adapted, and now they figured out how to have their staff work from home. Well, if your staff can work from home, they can work from home from anywhere, right? And over the last 10 years, I have been utilizing virtual assistants in the Philippines. And if you think about it, anytime you call your cell phone provider, your bank, your airline to book a ticket, when I call Delta, when I call Sprint, when I call Chase, the customer service is out of India or out of the Philippines, right? And you think about, well, if these massive corporations can hire virtual assistants, why can't smaller corporations do it? So I've been doing it for the last 10 to 11 years. And, you ask any entrepreneur if they could go back and do things over again, what would they do? And in many cases, I've heard this over and over and over. You'll hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, I would have hired somebody sooner. Because when you first start a business, you think, I got to do this perfectly, I got to do this right. So you do it yourself. And then what happens is you do everything yourself. You're the janitor, you're the CEO, you're the everything of that business. And what happens is when you are the janitor of that business, then you aren't able to focus on the higher producing income of being the CEO of that business. And whatever it is that you're doing in that business, you can hire somebody else out for the lower producing income activities so that you can stay focused on the higher income producing activities. So many entrepreneurs will say, yes, if I could start all over and do it again, I would have hired out sooner. And I totally agree. But the hiccup is, yeah, that's great and dandy to say and want, but if you don't have the ability to pay somebody, then how do you do it, right? Like, if you wanted to pay somebody to come work for you, and let's say here specifically, we live in Salt Lake City, and you thought, well, I need an assistant to help me do this and that and this and that. You're looking at 15 to 20 bucks an hour, depending on who that assistant is. You might not have the ability to pay 15, 20 bucks an hour yet, right? You haven't grown to that capability. Well, virtual assistants are significantly more affordable that you can hire in other parts of the world. So I'll give you an example of how it works. And this is exactly what the course teaches people. So this is exactly what Delta does. This is what Chase Bank does. This is what Verizon and T-Mobile and Sprint all do. Basically, you create a job that whatever it is that you want to do, you create the job itself. So if you're looking for an assistant, if you're looking for a website developer, if you're looking for a social media manager, whatever it is you're looking for, you put it on the internet. There's certain websites that you can go to that you would post this ad. It's like a KSL, right? Except it's not KSL. And you post this job ad on the internet, and basically the whole wide world has access to it as well. And anybody who's looking for a job will go and search this platform for opportunities for employment. Now, when I post a job up on there, I will get Americans that will, say, but here's what they do. They bid. So they're going to bid on what they would charge you to do what it is that you're asking to get done. So that's why you put in the description what you need somebody to do. They read the description and say, okay, based off that, I would do that for this amount of money per hour, per project, per whatever. So, I'll get Americans that will, all across the United States that will bid, yeah, I'll do that for 28 bucks an hour, 25 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour. And I'll get people in Canada, same prices, 20, 25, 30. And I'll get people in England, Australia, same price, New Zealand, 20, 25, 30 bucks per hour, right? But then you get people from India, you get people from the Philippines, you get people from Bangladesh, you get people from Africa, you get people from South America that will say, I'll do that for 2 bucks an hour, 4 bucks an hour, 5, 6, 10 bucks an hour. Significantly less than what you would pay somebody here locally, which is obviously why those massive corporations go and hire those virtual assistants. Now, in the beginning, you want to get somebody hired as quickly as possible. So this is a great way for somebody to be able to get into becoming an entrepreneur, immediately hiring staff, so that you can afford to be able to get help. And then as you grow, sure, then if you want, you can choose to hire somebody locally. If that's what you really want, then you can choose to hire someone locally. I know a gentleman here in Park City runs a massive, they sold it, but he had a really successful tech company, and he had, I believe, if I remember correctly, 7 virtual assistants that worked full-time, 40 hours a week for him, 6 of which were in the Philippines, 1 which was in Los Angeles. Really beautiful setup how he did this. So what he did is he would speak to the gal in Los Angeles on a daily basis and basically communicate what needs to get done for the day and all of that good stuff. The gal from Los Angeles then managed the 6 in the Philippines. So he only had to speak to 1. It's not like he had to speak to 7 employees consistently every single day managing their work. He could focus on what he needed to do, have a daily meeting with the gal in LA, in Los Angeles, and then that gal in Los Angeles managed everybody who was virtual. I guess she was virtual too, but that was manage everybody outside of the country. So he was able to take this little tiny tech company, hire help, and grow it massively. Now, actually, as I'm saying this, he actually had, and still does today, because now he's doing another tech company. his developers that developed the technology actually are in the Ukraine. So the Filipinos were in charge of the marketing. They're the ones that got the technology out there so people actually knew what it was. The gal in Los Angeles managed those people, but the developers that were actually creating the technology, some were here in the States, but a lot of them were in the Ukraine. I remember him telling me now he had to go to the Ukraine a couple of times. So here's a guy who's developed a tech company in Park City, Utah, while utilizing help at a very affordable rate of people highly super capable. When I say super capable, I mean these guys have master's degrees. You know, it's just where they live, the going rate of what they charge is significantly less than, let's say, where we live. And so he's able to build this massive team of individuals to help him grow his company, which, like I said, he's already sold, and now he's doing another one. I don't know where he's at with this other one, but very interesting way to be able to hire help at an early phase of your entrepreneurship to help you grow quicker, to get to a point that you are now hands off on those little tasks that are not higher producing income. And then again, like I said, if you get to a point where you want to start hiring locals, go for it, right? But this course that I'm talking about, that I'm so excited about, is going to teach all of those things as far as those 6 different topics. There's 6 different courses in one. So we are anticipated to launch that here probably at the new year of 2021. So definitely stay tuned if you've ever thought about getting involved in real estate. Like I said, I think it's going to be, personally, the best course out there because of all that's going to offer in one course. You can go out and get real estate courses that are going to offer, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of real estate courses out there are niche specific and you have to buy them all. You know, that's what I did when I first got involved in real estate. I wanted to get educated, and I remember I went and spent $25,000 for a real estate education program that lasted a year. And in that education program, there were things that you know, all the niches you could do, but you could also just focus on the one niche. After that program's over, it doesn't mean that you're an expert now. It's like anything, right? You go to school, you go to the University of Utah or BYU or wherever you go for 4 years to become something. The day you graduate doesn't mean you're an expert at that. You still gotta keep educating yourself on whatever it might be, whether you're an attorney and you got to educate yourself on law, whether it's medicine, you got to educate yourself in the medical field, or accounting, because those laws change. The day you graduate from school doesn't mean you can go out there and you're now an expert. You got to keep evolving. And so since then, I'm constantly educating myself on individual niches that I've learned through different courses that were individual niche courses. And so there's obviously no right or wrong way to do it. It's just kind of what you want, but I feel like if you're going to have the best success, it's probably going to be based off of learning a little bit of them all. So that's super exciting as far as anybody out there who's really thinking, hey man, I want to get into the game. This is a great way to start to learn how to do the steps necessary to, like I said, start investing in real estate and build a team that's going to be able to help you grow at an affordable rate. So, you know, with real estate investing, if you've listened to my show before, we've talked about, we've talked with so many guests in regards to investing and that are real estate investors. And right now, with the market being so hot, I would say the number one question I get asked, and if you're listening out there and you're thinking about getting involved in real estate, I know you've asked yourself this, or you've asked somebody this, is you hear all these investors talk about deals that they've done, and the question becomes, how the heck do you find these deals, right? And that's the greatest thing about real estate investing, is you learn how to just do that one niche. Now we're going to speak about one particular niche right now. We talked about how the course caters to all the niches, being able to recognize finding a deal. But if you can find a deal because you now know how to recognize a deal, because you now know all the ins and outs on if it's a good deal for a flip, a rental, a seller, finance, whatever it may be, then there are people out there like myself who are looking for those as well. And if somebody brings that to me, they call it wholesaling or bird dogging. It depends on if you lock it under contract or not. But there are people out there that make a living finding these deals and then turning around and immediately reselling them to people like me. I do the same. I'll wholesale as well. But as I mentioned earlier, I tend to prefer to fix and flip. So people will come to me and say, hey, listen, I've got this opportunity. You can buy it for this price. And do you want it or not? And I'll assess it, and in many cases I'll be like, yeah, I want it, and I buy it, and I fix it up and flip it. But they've just made a profit on just finding the deal, right? And so we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to share some tips with you on how to find these deals. Because again, it is one of the most trickiest part of the real estate investing world. People always say cash is king. You know what? In a hot market, the deal is king. There are a lot of people right now in this hot economy that have a lot of cash, but they don't have the deal. And if you can find the deal, oh man, it's easy to find the cash. If you can find a deal that's going to make someone money, give them a good return, it's not difficult to find the money. And so the real trick here is to find the deal. You know, you can learn how to take a house from the time you demo it to the time you resell it, and teach someone all those steps, but those steps become irrelevant if you don't know how to find the deal. So you can find a great rental property at a super affordable price that you're going to turn around and rent for great cash flow, and you can teach someone all those steps. But if they can't find it, what's the point of knowing all those steps? And so I'm going to start sharing with you guys after the commercial break some tips on how to find these awesome deals. So stay tuned. Okay, before we part ways, in case you have a dog or know someone else who does have a dog, I wanted to take a quick second to show you the Snap Leash. The Snap Leash can literally do so many things, and I'm going to share with you one of the many cool things that it can do. As you can see, the Snap Leash is designed with 2 swivel hooks, one on each end. This end has a cushion stitched into it to make it comfortable when walking your dog. Now, all you have to do is take this swivel hook, put it into this very first grommet, and now you've got your handle. Okay, so now let's imagine you're at the park and you want to secure your pet quickly, safely, and easily to a park bench, a tree, or a pole because you just want to sit down and relax. Well, all you need to do is take this swivel hook, remove it from the very first grommet, wrap this leash around any size tree or pole or park bench, and put it into the appropriate grommet. And now you have secured your pet quickly, safely, and easily. And when it's time to head home, another great feature about the Snap Leash is you can simply wrap it around your waist for hands-free walking. Lastly, if you ever accidentally forget your waist bags at home, these grommets make a great place to fasten the waist bags so you never leave home without them. And if you want to see all of the other cool things that the Snap Leash can do, then please just click on the link below and find out why so many others are falling in love with the Snap Leash.